United States. My name is Olivia. I have been hired by the World Health Organization to investigate the spread of a contagious disease which has led to several deaths in North America, including the United States. I would like to inform you on what I have discovered. I hope you will take my information into consideration to make the best decisions regarding the well-being of your citizens and other key government leaders of the nation. Based on my calculations, I have discovered that the following equation accurately represents this scenario. Y equals 40.8479 times 1.70107 to the power of x. The y value represents the number of people infected, while the x value represents the number of days before or after April 10th. A negative x value indicates a date before April 10th, while a positive x value indicates a date after April 10th. I utilized Desmos to create a table of values to create an exponential regression equation to map out this scenario. Afterwards, I used algebraic methods to calculate the exact point at which we expect there to be a certain number of infections, or to calculate the number of infections. When I was given a specific date after April 10th, I substituted that value for x and solved for y. When I was given a specific number of people infected, I substituted that value for y and solved for x. This is the graph of this equation. To calculate the number of infections expected to be in the United States by May 5th, I first found out how many days after April 10th is May 5th. I discovered it to be exactly 25 days. Using this equation, I substituted 25 for x and solved for y. I discovered that by May 5th, 23,945,525 people are expected to be infected. To calculate the date at which a specific number of people are expected to be infected, I substituted that given value for y and solved for x. I utilized logarithms to solve for x. By April 20th, 10,000 people are expected to be infected. By April 25th, 100,000 people are expected to be infected. And by April 29th, 1 million people are expected to be infected. The total population of the United States is 325,700,000. By inserting this number for y and solving for x, I discovered at what point we expect the entire population to be infected. I have found out that by May 10th, the entire population of the United States is expected to be infected. We must utilize this information to take critical steps towards preventing this disease from continuing to spread among our vulnerable population.
My name is Cameron Leclerc. I have also been hired to study the spread of disease in the United States. When 10% of the population of the United States is infected by the disease, I would recommend the evacuation of key government leaders. This would mean that 32 million would be infected. I calculated this by multiplying the total population of the country by 0.10. I chose this percentage because there would be a likely chance that some key government officials might be infected, inevitably putting the entire leadership of the country at danger. 1 in every 10 people in the United States would be infected. Having the leadership of the United States infected would put the entire country at risk for complete economic and governmental disruption. The country would lack proper leadership and could mark the start of a civil war. Therefore, it is highly recommended that we protect our country's citizens by making sure that the key government leaders are properly evacuated by the time 10% of the population is infected by this deadly disease. I would expect 10%, or about 32 million people of the total population, to be infected by May 6th. To calculate the date at which a specific number of people are expected to be infected, I substitute the value for y and solve for x. I utilize logarithms to solve for x. The state of Texas has an estimated population of about 28 million, which is a slightly lower number of people compared to my evacuation limit. Based on this information, this would mean that more than the total population of Texas would be infected by the disease if 10% of the United States was infected. In summary, the entire state of Texas has an estimated equivalent number of people as my evacuation limit.
Based on our calculations, I have discovered that the following equation accurately represents this scenario. Y equals 111.833 times 1.3399 to the x power. To calculate the number of infections expected to be in Mexico by May 5th, we first found out how many days after April 10th is May 5th. I discovered it to be exactly 25 days after April 10th. Using this equation, we substituted 25 for x and I solved for y. I discovered that by May 5th, 168,027 people. Calculate the date at which a specific number of people are expected to be infected. I substituted that given value for y and solved for x. I utilized logarithms to solve for x. By April 25th, 10,000 people are expected to be infected. By May 3rd, 100,000. And by May 11th, 1 million people are expected to be infected. The total population for Mexico is 127 million. By inserting this number for y and solving for x, I discovered at what point we expect the entire population to be infected. I have found that by May 27th, the entire population of Mexico will be infected. Seeing as 10% of people in Mexico, meaning 1 in every 10 people, have been infected with this disease, we strongly advise the evacuation of leaders. The estimated population evacuation is a little over 8 million people. Seeing as this is close to the City of Mexico's province, a little over that amount can be evacuated.
Dear leaders of Canada, my name is Ryann. The World Health Organization has hired me to investigate the spread of contagious disease in Canada. Based on my calculations, I've discovered that the following equation accurately represents the scenario y equals 119.032. The y value represents the number of people infected. The x value represents the number of days before or after April 10th. A negative x value indicates a date before April 10th, while a positive x value indicates a date after April 10th. I utilized Desmos to create a table of values to calculate an exponential regression equation to map out the scenario. This is the graph of the equation. Using the same process as solving the US's equation, I found out the following. Number 1, I discovered that by May 5th, 1,302,030,426 people are expected to be infected. Number 2, by April 17th, 10,000 people are expected to be infected. By April 20th, 100,000 people are expected to be infected. And by April 24th, 1 million people are expected to be infected. Number 3, the total population of Canada is 36,290,000 people. By inserting the number y and by solving for x, I found out that by April 29th, the entire population of Canada is expected to be infected. Number 4, when 10% of the population of Canada is infected by the disease, I would recommend the evacuation of key government leaders. This would mean that 2,629,000 of Canada's total population would be. I calculated this by multiplying the total population of the country by 0.1. I chose this percentage because this would mean that 1 in every 10 people in Canada would be infected. There is a likely possibility that some members of the government will be infected. Having the leadership of Canada infected would put the entire country at risk for complete chaos. The country would lack proper leadership. Therefore, it is highly recommended that we protect our country's citizens by making sure that the key government leaders are properly evacuated by the time 10% of the population is infected by this deadly disease. I would expect 10% or 3,629,000 people of the total population to be infected by April 26th. To calculate the date at which a specific number of people are expected to be infected, I substituted the given value for y and solved for x. I utilized logarithms to solve for x. The provinces of British Columbia has an estimated population of 4,648,055 people. The province of Alberta has an estimated population of 4,067,175 people, which is a slightly greater number of people compared to my evacuation limit. Based on this information, this would mean that almost the total population of British Columbia or Alberta would be infected by the disease if 10% of Canada was infected. In summary, almost the entire province of British Columbia or Alberta has an estimated equivalent number of people as my evacuation limit.
Considering all three sets of data, we believe the first infection was on April 3rd. We strongly believe that this disease began its journey in the country of Canada. We have found this out by substituting 1 for y and solving for x in all three of the equations we created to represent each set of data. The x value for Canada is approximately negative 7.37. This means the first infection was about 7 days before April 10th, or exactly April 3rd. To accurately predict at which point in time the entire world population would be infected, we used Canada's equation. We chose this equation because the disease likely began its deadly journey in Canada. As a result, This would mean that there is a strong possibility that the disease would spread at the rate of Canada's equation. The entire world population is 7.6 billion people. By substituting this value for y, we solved for x. The x value we've discovered is approximately 28. This means the entire population is expected to be infected 28 days after April 10th, or exactly May 8th. This means that world leaders must take immediate action to prevent this disease from becoming a worldwide tragedy. Recently, we have discovered that on April 19th, a new cure has been created to combat the disease. There's enough medication to cure 10,000 people, and they are creating an additional 2,000 every day. As a group, we have decided that the vaccine should first be dispensed to the countries most at risk of being infected. Once the number of infections in that country is under control, the vaccines should then be given to other countries. Because Canada's population is most at risk, they should receive the treatment first. The date at which their entire population is expected to be infected is April 29th. This does not give us time to wait. Immediate action is necessary for the well-being of their citizens. They should receive 5,000 vaccines. Next, the United States should receive treatment because their entire population is expected to be infected on May 10th. They should receive 2,500 vaccines. Lastly, Mexico's citizens should receive the vaccines because their entire population is expected to be infected on May 27th. They should receive 2,500 vaccines. Once 10,000 vaccines have been dispensed among these countries, each of them should receive at least 600 vaccines daily to combat the disease. There is a way to completely stop the disease, but it requires mutual cooperation between each country's leadership and their people. Governments should encourage its citizens to live safely and promote that individuals visit their doctor if they feel ill. Screening individuals is to determine if they have been infected or exposed to an infectious disease is a core public health strategy. Early treatment has important public health benefits and can prevent this disease from becoming deadly. Mass quarantine should be imposed on certain geographical areas with a densely populated number of people infected by the disease. This would immediately prevent further spread of the disease among the healthy population. Additionally, to halt the spread, all transportation by planes, trains, and cars should temporarily be stopped. This would help prevent other countries from being infected by the disease. These decisions have to be made quickly and effectively. If not, an epidemic may quickly spread and become a serious threat to global health.